Hello, my name is Ellen Krug. My friends call me Ellie. I'm the Executive Director of Call for Justice, a small nonprofit based in Minneapolis, which works to increase civil legal access for low-income people in the Twin Cities. For the next half hour or so, I'm going to describe what Call for Justice does. I'm going to talk about our wonderful collaboration with United Way 211, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the components of Call for Justice, how the project works, and some of the key elements of our training relative to civil legal referrals in the Twin Cities. First of all, a little bit of the background about Call for Justice. We came into being in December of 2011 as a brand new nonprofit. We are the product of some very intense hard work by legal professionals in the Twin Cities. They recognized that there was a need to systemically work to increase civil legal access. That is the technical phrase, access. But in essence, in plain English, they recognized that it was important to help low-income people get in touch with lawyers more quickly. Historically, what's happened is that folks have received legal referrals from a number of different sources in the Twin Cities, including United Way 211, and those referrals have been had been concentrated on a number of just a small number of legal providers. The goal was to increase referrals across the board so that people in legal need were able to connect with the legal provider more quickly and more efficiently. Call for Justice originated with the idea first that we would work in conjunction with United Way 211, which historically receives somewhere between 30 and 40,000 legal need calls a year. Overall, they receive more than 400,000 calls for people with a variety of needs, many of those requiring social service referrals. The unique feature about United Way 211 is that it could provide both legal referrals as well as social service referrals. So, for example, a family that was at risk of eviction could, at the very same time they received legal referrals, also receive referrals to shelters, to food banks, and to other organizations that could provide for their needs in the event that they were evicted. So in that sense, the collaboration between Call for Justice and United Way 211 made wonderful sense. And it also was representative of something that we pride ourselves on, which is leveraging resources. We're a huge believer in the idea that if you create something, you should be able to leverage it, get the most out of it if possible. And I'll talk about leveraging as I go on and speak about a number of different things. The mission, as I said, of Call for Justice is to connect low-income people with civil legal resources in the Twin Cities. We do that in a variety of ways. One is by working with United Way 211, which I will discuss further in a second. We also do it by working to convene organizations that ordinarily would not communicate with each other. So we've instituted a program called the Legal Liaison Program, which I'll discuss in a second as well, where nonprofit legal providers and social service providers come together to talk about their programs and needs. We also, though, identify collaborations, the possible collaborations that will help increase civil legal access in the Twin Cities. And lastly, what we do is we use our imagination and our energies at persistence to help foster a community where we fill gaps and where we identify duplication, and most of all, where we act as advocates for increasing access for low-income people in the Twin Cities. The United Way 211 collaboration with Call for Justice began in March of 2012, where we started training United Way 211 on various legal topics. Our first training session was on the basics. What is the difference between a civil and criminal case? How do lawsuits get filed in Minnesota with our crazy system of pocket filing, where it's not necessary to file actual lawsuit for it to be effective and binding on folks. We have since taught on a variety of topics, ranging from landlord-tenant law to family law, domestic violence, mediation, community mediation, restorative justice, to consumer law issues. We've had the Attorney General's office come in and speak about what they do. And we've even gone so far as to bring in training about efficient yet very caring interview techniques. All of this is geared towards the idea that if our 211 Information Referral Specialist colleagues are better educated about the law, they'll be better able to identify what particular area a person should be referred to in terms of a legal referral. By no means do we want our 211 colleagues to be giving legal advice, and our training is not geared towards that, but it's certainly geared towards education about how various aspects of the law work. Our training has taken place on a monthly basis with some breaks since March of 2012. We are soon to begin training session number 17. All of our training sessions have involved speakers from the outside who represent a variety of nonprofit legal providers, some social service providers, but all folks who are well schooled and trained on the subject matter in which they trained. Every training session is a 2-day process, because not all of the 211 information referral folks can be taken off the telephones at the same time. And the training sessions, lasting usually about an hour and a half, are videotaped as well, so that those videotapes are used then for training purposes for 211, as well as they are posted on the Call for Justice website. And an interesting fact is that those training videos seem to have taken on a life of their own. The viewership rate of those videos is increasing approximately 30% a month. We are hearing from people across the country. Actually, I've heard from people across the world who have seen the videos. And in that sense, again, another example of our leveraging. The videos help 211 train, they help them refresh their memories about things, and now the videos help with the public. Our written training materials, so we have created, as part of our work, we have created a notebook, such as this, whoops, very good, such as this, which has every training session in it. These notebooks, the old-fashioned paper system, are something that the 211 information referral folks have at their desks. And we've been advised repeatedly that having it in notebook form and paper form has been extremely helpful, because as they're speaking with a caller on the phone, they can go to the notebook, open a tab, and read a section of the notebook for their own use, or sometimes to read to folks, to callers on the telephone. So the training materials that we've created, which are created from our own very template. When Call for Justice began in December of 2011, when I was hired as the executive director to take on the charge of creating this nonprofit and going forward, there was no model for us on what we've undertaken with 211. Actually, there was no model of any type for what we've undertaken with everything with Call for Justice. And so we've used our imaginations. We've created this notebook with individual training sessions. where the sessions describe the legal topic at issue, then provide some tips about making referrals, and then provide the resources, identify the resources in the Twin Cities where referrals should be made to. Those training materials, part of the booklets given to 211, but each of those training materials is also on the Call for Justice website. Again, more leveraging. And so what we have found with our 211 training, as we have tracked the referrals through a process called taxonomy, is that the referrals have become more diffuse, more spread out, and that resources that formerly received very few referrals have now begun over the process to receive many more referrals. So for example, referrals to the court self-help centers have increased 200 to 300%. Referrals to lawhelpmn.org, the website associated with legal aid in Minnesota, those referrals have increased almost 800%. Referrals to various clinics, to the Immigrant Law Center, to other entities providing legal services in the Twin Cities have all increased. At the same time, we've noticed that many of the traditional referral sources, such as legal aid, that those referrals have stayed steady. And this is reflective, we believe, of the fact that we are catching, 211 is catching more people, getting them to the right places compared to what had been the case before we started training. I need to add that 211 has been extremely receptive and welcoming to our work. We could not do this collaboration without them being a wholehearted 100% partner. And they've done a great job in being open to ideas as well as suggesting ideas on their own. For example, videotaping, that was a 211 idea, and one that we readily embraced and made and incorporated into our training package. Let me talk a little bit about what else Call for Justice has done, so you'll have an idea of the breadth of our organization. To back up, we're just two people. I am the executive director. I'm an attorney licensed in Minnesota and 2 other states. I've been practicing law for almost 32 years. I'm a trial lawyer by trade. I was somebody who operated my own law firm doing trial work in Iowa. I was hired, I believe, because of my experience in creating organizations, as well as I'm a writer. So I think I was hired for my imagination. We have one other employee, a program content manager. Emily Lindholm is her name. And the two of us do all the work of Call for Justice. The great thing about our organization is that there's not much to us. Our tagline, our motto is that we are low overhead and high energy. And the great thing about that is that we have the ability to really move nimbly and simply change pace on a dime. No bureaucracy, no high hurdles, no forms or regulations that we adhere to. Certainly we adhere to good ethics and good business practices, but if we recognize that there is a need in the community, we have the ability to literally focus on it immediately. So for example, what kinds of things have we done? We've identified a number of different organizations in the community that did really good work, but lacked a relationship with a legal provider. So for example, there's a program with campuses in Minneapolis and St. Paul that works to end intergenerational poverty in women and children. The program, the Jeremiah program, did not have an ongoing relationship with a legal provider. I recognized that. I found out about that early on in my tenure as the executive director of Call for Justice. And through a program that I've talked about a little bit ago, the Legal Liaison Program, we worked to arrange for two large Minneapolis law firms, the Robbins Kaplan and the Lindquist and Venom law firms, to adopt the Jeremiah program. One firm took the Minneapolis campus, the other took the St. Paul campus. And now today, in late 2013, each of those campuses have lawyers assigned to them. So our collaboration, which we call the Jeremiah collaboration, which was a product of those law firms, the Jeremiah organization, as well as the Volunteer Lawyers Network in Minneapolis, that program now has taken 80 women and 100 kids out of the system. They no longer need to look for lawyers when they have legal needs. This is quite, in our view, quite remarkable. We've identified other programs. We have created the only list of lawyers, of LGBT lawyers, to represent at-risk LGBT youth, as well as LGBT adults with civil legal needs. In addition to that, we have worked and created the only list of nonprofit or pro bono interpreters, and so to work with social service providers and nonprofit legal providers. So today we have a list of 23 interpreters representing 13 languages that have come forward and been willing to offer their services for free to do everything from interpret or translate documents, to provide interpretation for clients, to help create brochures, for example, for the Sexual Violence Center here in Minneapolis. And so those are examples of different things that we have done, each of those as a result of us understanding about a gap and then trying to fill that gap through imagination and persistence in asking people to collaborate in a variety of ways. The Legal Liaison program that I've talked about is a program designed to get nonprofit legal providers and social service providers to communicate with each other. Many times we find that organizations, while they're doing incredibly good work, and while they're incredibly overworked due to a lack of limited resources, they don't talk to each other. And as a result of that, an organization may be doing X that could benefit an organization that really needs X, but if they don't know about each other, the gap in the need is not filled. So our Legal Liaison organization is designed to get people in a room and to do something that is so terribly old-fashioned. Talk to each other. No more screens, no more emails or websites, but simply to get people in a room. And how do we do that? We do what we call speed networking. So for 8-minute increments, we have people talk to each other, we have them break, and then go talk to someone else. And out of that, we are aware of many collaborations and much more communication being shared. All of what we have, our liaisons, are folks who have signed up for this liaison program. At present, we have more than 50 liaison organizations. Those organizations receive regular email blasts from us. We call them L-mails, identifying various programs, new developments in the law. For example, soon there will be in Minnesota an online legal advice system. And we have been promoting and talking about that with our legal liaisons. Our liaisons are also part of a listserv where they can communicate with each other directly. Again, this is to bypass this silo stuff that goes on all too often and to get organizations to communicate with each other, and in the process helping to increase civil legal access. By the way, I think it increases access for social services as well. So all of that is part of our legal liaison program. In addition to that, we have taken on a number of different projects. For example, there has been a very determined effort to increase the number of pro bono lawyers doing pro bono work in the Twin Cities. Our organization got involved in doing that. We helped create brochures to enlist pro bono lawyers for various programs. And it's worked. We were very successful in helping recruit 130 new pro bono lawyers to help with a housing court project. And because of our work in part and the work of others, now every person going through housing court in Hennepin County, people who may be at risk of eviction, or people who are living in hard conditions that require immediate repairs, each of those people now have access to a lawyer. They have the ability to talk to a lawyer. And so those are a variety of ways that we have done our work. As we've done our work, we've talked about a number of different things, and a number of key principles, a number of key ideas. All of these center around what are the 5 core needs as it relates to poverty law, that is, to law that applies to folks who are low income and who do not have the means or the resources to utilize private attorneys. What are those 5 needs? They are shelter, personal safety, such as domestic abuse, protection from domestic abuse, access to medical care, access to employment benefits, such as unemployment or workers' comp benefits, or disability benefits. And the 5th relates to why don't we go off for a second? So part of what we do is we train around what are the 5 core needs that relate to protecting low-income people and making them safe. Because low-income people can't access legal resources ordinarily, because they are at risk, greater risk than folks with resources. All of our training and all of poverty law, that is what legal aid would do, what other nonprofit legal providers do, are geared to protecting 5 key areas. And I will read those areas because I don't want to forget them. So they are areas that first relate to shelter, that is somebody's ability to live in a safe place, to keep their home, to keep their apartment. It relates to personal safety, such as victims of domestic abuse or violence, being able to protect them, keep them out of harm's way. Relate to employment benefits, such as unemployment or workers' comp or Social Security disability type of benefits. The 4th protected area is access to medical benefits, somebody's right to be able to keep their health care, such as Medicaid or Medicare. And the last is protecting key family relationships. A person's ability to be able to keep a relationship with a child or a relationship with a parent, or in the case of someone who have lost both of their parents for whatever reason, a relationship with a key family member. These are the areas that generally all of our training evolves around. And this is generally what nonprofit legal providers concentrate on. In our training, we've helped 2-on-1 identify when those key areas have come up versus other areas. I often use the contrasting example of the barking dog next door. While that barking dog may be quite a nuisance for a neighbor, it is not the type of situation that poverty lawyers will get involved in. And it's important to keep that because there are not enough pro bono lawyers, not enough lawyers doing poverty law in the Twin Cities, or for that matter in the United States, to be able to help everybody with a key legal need, one of those 5s that I just talked about. And so all of our training is geared around helping people with those kinds of needs. As part of our training, we've also developed what I call takeaway points. And one of our training sessions, I spent the entire session going over the types of things that we had learned up to that date. And that training session is training, if you go to our website, is training session number 14. I've identified, I call it, it's titled Ellie's Top 10 Takeaways, as if I have the right to title anything. And I'm just going to cover a few of these as just for education's sake. All of our referrals all of our training takes kind of this type of course in terms of reinforcement. One is that every legal referral should include both what we call a primary referral and a fallback referral. The idea for that is that the primary referral would be, hopefully, for example, in the case of somebody who is an immigrant, has an immigrant law need, is to refer them to an immigrant law nonprofit providers, such as the Minnesota Immigrant Law Center, and make that referral. But also we train to provide fallback referrals in case that referral falls through for whatever reason, bearing in mind that nonprofit legal providers have eligibility requirements. All of those eligibility requirements evolve, for the most part, around income. All of the income guidelines are based on the federal poverty guidelines. So thus, if somebody makes a little bit more than what might be 125% or 200% of the federal poverty guidelines, they may not be eligible for a nonprofit legal provider's services. In that case, we want to provide them with a fallback referral so they can at least get some information about what their legal need may be. So in our case, many of our fallback referrals are the lawhelpmn.org that I've talked about, or the court self-help centers that exist in Ramsey and Hennepin counties, or the law libraries that exist in all of the metro counties in the Twin City area. Each of those locations can provide information about how the system works, information about the particular legal need at issue. They may not be able to provide legal advice. Or if they can provide legal advice, it may only be limited in a 15-minute slot. Nonetheless, it is more than having nothing. And our goal with 211 is to help distribute information as much as possible in a way that people can quickly grasp and know where to go as soon as they're done with their phone call with 211. Other things and other principles that we train on is that the idea that it is important for 211 information referral folks to instill the 3 Ps: persistence, patience, and preparation. Again, back to the idea that poverty law here in the Twin Cities, as well as across the country, is a process of juggling limited resources. And those resources are limited because there are not enough lawyers to go around. So that means somebody in legal need needs to be persistent in how they search out those resources. They need to be patient because they may need to wait. And they need to be prepared so that if they get the chance to talk to a lawyer, they have the paperwork with them, they have the story written out, they have the story being whatever is the nature of the legal need, and that they listen and are receptive to the legal advice that they receive. Other principles that we talk about is that there's a difference between full representation and brief legal advice. Full representation being where a lawyer will handle a matter from the start to finish. Brief legal advice is where a lawyer will only deal with a discrete legal topic subject of whatever may be the legal problem that a particular person has. For example, a lawyer may only write a letter. Again, not enough resources. Again, it's the system's way of trying to at least help everybody a little bit as they deal with their legal needs. Other principles that we've talked about is the difference between contingent fee cases and cases that are non-contingent fee. Contingent fee cases can get referred to lawyer referral services, and they will find plaintiff lawyers to help folks with those types of legal needs. Spanish-speaking clients go to one particular place in the Twin Cities through the Volunteer Lawyers Network. The last thing that we stress is the difference between a legal problem and a legal emergency. Many of our 211 callers are facing legal problems. There's something on the horizon. They know that they may have a problem with a landlord. It hasn't yet turned into an eviction. Or they may have a problem with a creditor on a credit card. They've gotten a letter, but it hasn't turned into a collection action yet. And what we've tried to stress is that when our 211 folks are talking to callers with legal problems, to import to them the need that they deal with that problem now, rather than ignore it or rather than go into denial. Because legal problems can turn into legal emergencies. In the process of going from problem to emergency, the caller loses tremendous options. When it's a problem, they have the ability to help fix it. When it's an emergency, when they're being sued or at the risk of eviction and they're a day away from the eviction hearing, they have very few options. So we try to instill the need. Deal with it now. Otherwise, you'll lose the ability to deal with it and you'll lose options. You may lose your housing and you may lose other things. I think that is about all that I wanted to talk about today, other than if you are a viewer watching this video, other than to say to you, please look at our website. It is a very detailed, resource-packed website with much to offer people with legal needs. If you are a 211 trainee or 211 employee, I want to tell you this. You do important work. We have a wonderful collaboration. It is a model for the nation, and I expect it to be replicated in other places across the country. You're doing important work, and we value you greatly as a colleague and as a collaborator, and we view your work as exceedingly important for our community. Thank you very much for your attention. We appreciate it, and have a good day.